In the criminal justice system, the people,
pimps, addicts, thieves, bums, winos, girls who can't keep an address, and men who don't care,
are represented by two separate yet equally important groups.
A cop, a flatfoot, a bull, a dick, John Law. You're the fuzz, the heat, you're poison, you're trouble, you're bad news.
These are their stories.
Well, this is mighty unfortunate. A California hospital lost a woman's body and then told the family she left, according to a lawsuit. A California hospital failed to inform a mother that her 31-year-old daughter had died in the hospital's care and then misplaced her body for a year as family members desperately tried to find this woman. This according to a lawsuit filed in Sacramento County. The mother and the two sisters of Jesse Peterson, who died in April of 2023 at Mercy San Juan Medical Center in Carmichael, said they were told that Jesse left of her own accord. In actuality, her body had been forgotten in cold storage. Yikes. Peterson grew up in Sacramento. She was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes at the age of 10. She had a diabetic episode in April of last year and was admitted to the hospital, where she previously had gone for diabetes-related care. 2 days later, she calls her mom from the hospital asking to be picked up. Less than 2 hours later, she died at the hospital of cardiac arrest while suffering from diabetic ketoacidosis, according to her death certificate. Jesse's family was not notified of her passing, despite extensive previous contact between the hospital and Jesse's family, according to the lawsuit the family has filed. Instead, they say the mother was allegedly told by hospital staff that Jesse left against medical advice. Meanwhile, her body had been placed on shelf number Red 22A and forgotten. In the following months, the family searches high and low for her. They're posting flyers. They're talking to her friends. They're going to homeless communities. They're filing a missing persons report with the county and the State Department of Justice. More than a year after Jesse died, April of 2024, a detective allegedly called the mother informing her that her daughter was found dead in a warehouse morgue at Mercy San Juan Medical Center. A few days later, the body was recovered by family, but the remains so decomposed they couldn't have an open casket for this funeral. The state of the body also meant that no autopsy could be carried out to prove or disprove medical malpractice. So
there's got to be someone at that hospital like, hey, this body's been in here for quite a long time.
Why is this one still here, right?
Yeah, exactly.
There's a civil suit now, Albert. It's brought against the hospital operator's Dignity Health, accusing the defendants of negligent handling of a corpse, infliction of emotional distress, and a violation of California's health safety codes. So there you go. Yeah, that's awful.
I wonder what David Katz would say about that. Guilty.
I think the family's got a pretty good case. How about this guy, this winner? This is a Kentucky man who was jailed for 9 years after faking his death to avoid child support. Prosecutors said Jesse Kipf, who was divorced in 2008,
It's a wild idea, but it just might work.
Used the login details of a doctor to register himself as deceased in Hawaii. He was sentenced to 9 years in prison for computer fraud and aggravated identity theft after he attempted to skip out on his outstanding child support obligations. Yikes, look at that guy. The U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Kentucky said Kipf accessed Hawaii's death registry system in January of last year, created a case for his own death, completed a worksheet for the death certificate. As a result, he was registered as deceased in several government databases. Wow. After his arrest in November, he admitted he did this in part to avoid paying child support, and then he pled guilty to both charges. So
I mean, that's a lot of hustle, and it looked great on paper. I felt like he had all the steps correct. I think.
I mean, it could have worked. Let's go back to medical malpractice, because what about this one? This hospital lost part of this man's synthetic skull and misplaced it. So here's how this works. This man underwent surgery, this man from Georgia, 2 years ago for a brain bleed. And he had to have part of his skull temporarily removed and was then charged thousands of dollars after medical staff lost this part of his skull.
What?
And they had to use a synthetic material to replace it instead. This is a 62-year-old guy named Fernando Cluster. And this whole thing is a cluster. He's admitted to Emory University Hospital in Atlanta in 2022, and he undergoes this decompressive hemicraniotomy, which is a surgery to relieve the pressure on the brain. According to a lawsuit that he filed last month, the medical procedure involved removing a 12 by 15 centimeter portion of his skull, known as a bone flap. The bone flap was scheduled to be surgically replaced during a cranioplasty the following month. Problem: workers at the hospital were unable to find Cluster's bone flap at the time of his follow-up surgery. The hospital is not responding to requests for a comment. They have not responded to his court filings. They say they located the bone flap the day before Cluster's surgery, but they couldn't find it when actually preparing for the operation the next day. They said they inspected the freezer where they store the bone flaps. They couldn't find the one with his ID on it. There were several others, nice, with incomplete or missing patient identification, but they couldn't be certain which, if any of those, belonged to Mr. Cluster. So hospital staff told him they had to reschedule his cranioplasty until a synthetic implant flap could be made. So the client was then forced to remain hospitalized due to this delay, and then they charged him for every day he stayed in the hospital, even though he had to stay there because of their mistake. The surgery eventually took place, but then he developed an infection from the synthetic flap and had to undergo an additional surgery. He has been charged more than $220,000 for all of the medical expenses related to his visit, including the cost of the synthetic bone flap, which he wouldn't have needed if they had kept track of the one that was his. Come on.
I'm not going to show the pictures. We had the picture here, but I made an executive decision to not show the picture.
I think it's a smart choice. They say it's shocking that a medical provider like Emory would lose part of one of its patients' skulls and then refuse to accept responsibility.
And they say, how much did he pay? $220,000.
$220,000 in medical bills. Absolutely. Is that wild? Yeah. And an infection that he had to undergo, pain and suffering for a whole nother surgery. Wild.
There's never been anything like this.
How about, let's do one more story.
Michael Sider just got here. Kim, I just want to let you know.
See it. Let's do one more story because this is a really good one out of Oakland. This is the last one in the series. And it's bystanders this week, I believe, held a suspected hit-and-run driver until police had the chance to arrive in this deadly hit-and-run crash. This one happened in Oakland on Monday. This man was surrounded by bystanders after allegedly attempting to flee the scene, this according to police. The man involved in multiple accidents, apparently killed a 17-year-old resident in all of this. And finally, at the end, there's pedestrians that ended up coming out and holding him until police could arrive. And here's what they say. This lifelong resident in Oakland, Dante Sean is his name, said pedestrians rallied around the suspect after he saw a man crash into 3 vehicles speeding down 82nd and International Boulevard. And here's what he said. He said, "I grew up in Oakland all my life, and I've never seen a car drive that fast." He was among this group of passerbys confronting this man as they believe he was trying to exit the scene of this crash. The man appeared to have blood on his face and denied driving the car, even though they knew he did it. He said he tried to blend in and act as if he wasn't driving the vehicle, but he couldn't really explain it all the way, and he was bleeding from his forehead down to his face. So multiple bystanders attempt to have this man sit down on the passenger side of his suspected vehicle. And then he and bystanders saw a bottle and a beer in the cup holder of the vehicle. He said it was just a mess. Music blaring, the Bluetooth in. They said, "We tried to pull the door open to pop the hood because when he first stopped, it was smoking so badly. There was antifreeze dripping steadily from the bottom." And then he said the community took the situation into their own hands for the police. He said it's crazy that he crashed on the same block where officers were, and that the pedestrians actually had to do that. He said it doesn't make sense. The police were already patrolling in the area. He said they had to hold him for 10 minutes while waiting for authorities to arrive after he saw officers patrolling on the same block. Welcome to Oakland. So there you go. Thanks to the passersby, they have this man in custody. And that, well done, Oakland. That is Law and Disorder.
Tune in again next time for more Law and Disorder on The Mark Thompson Show.
All right, that's it. Let's roll. Hey, let's be careful out there.
Hi, it's Mark, and I thought that was great. Hit the notification bell. You'll know whenever there's a new video being dropped, and please subscribe to our channel to help us save the universe.